Great. All right, now we're in the, all right. So Trevor, let me bring in the queue. Trevor Conroy. He is a member of the People's Organization for Progress. He is also a very, very, very avid activist. He's working with the Popcorn Kids. He's been at legislative meetings that we're going to talk about today. He actually is an African American Studies student. Like I said, he is he's hitting the ball running. I'm telling you guys, you're going to hear a lot more from Trevor in the weeks to come and the years to come. This guy is very dynamic, and he is definitely up and coming. Again, welcome to Grown Folks Talking Radio podcast, Trevor Conroy. Go ahead, Trevor.
Thank you for the introduction, Susan. Yes, I'm one of our youth, and glad to bring the youth energy to Grown Folks Talking. I'm the co-chair of People's Organizations for Progress's Youth Committee. I'm involved with the Popcorn Kids, and I was a founding member of Protect AFAM at Seton Hall University, where last year we protested and saved our Africana Studies program from the university, trying to get rid of it. With the fight against Black studies by white supremacy is unfortunately still ongoing, but we all have to get involved and fight that fight. So I'm a student activist. I'm studying Africana Studies and looking to be a history teacher after I graduate. So this attack on the Open Public Records Act is very much something that deeply concerns me, especially when you look at history, not only in our country but the world at large. Is any time you see, like, the first step towards fascism is cutting off the public's access to information. So the New Jersey government attempting to cut off the people's access to our public records. Not only does that allow the government to then hide evidence of police brutality, but it also allows the government not to disclose. It allows the government to not necessarily directly hide things, but it's that people can't access information. So that's journalists. So even if you and me aren't using the Oprah request to get public information, all of our journalists throughout the state of New Jersey, and you make Oprah requests to our municipalities, our townships, our counties, and the state to get information. I know when a few weeks ago when Marcel and I went down to Trenton to testify at the State Assembly committee hearing about this bill, there was a lot of journalists present. There was us representing the People's Organization for Progress, and there was also some other local activists in New Jersey. I know. Forgive me if I mispronounce their organization's name, but I believe it's New Jersey Water Report, which they report on water quality all throughout the state of New Jersey. So that's our drinking water, that's the water on our beaches and shores, that's the water in the Delaware River, that's all that, So like when the government does water testing, you kind of want to know the quality of your water, Like look what happened in Flint, Michigan and all that. You would want to know if that's the quality of your water, So think of it that way. It allows you to also do research into your school districts. It allows you to Oprah allows you to request information, do research into local history. It allows, it's easier to list off the things that you can't do with Oprah rather than the things that you can do. It's a very diverse bill, but essentially it boils down to the public and the community's access to information. And unfortunately, our state assembly and our state senate have both passed the bill, and it's currently sitting on Governor Murphy's desk, which would be gutting the Open Public Records Act.
Okay. I'm going to play something for the audience. And, Trevor, I want you to tell me what you think about this. I think you were there. I'm going to begin this.
Summers in New Jersey. We're made to wow you. Find your wow at visitnj.org. New Jersey, little state, lot of wow.
A bill advocates warn will gut access to government records got the green light today from a key legislative committee approving controversial reforms to New Jersey's Open Public Records Act. This is the bill's second go-around in Trenton after lawmakers fast-tracked the legislation and were met with a tsunami of opposition. Members of the Senate Budget Committee today heard hours of testimony from clerks and mayors arguing the requests have become a burden to watchdogs and lawyers who insist this bill will undermine transparency. Senior correspondent Brenda Flanagan reports.
This approach that you're taking is kind of taking a bazooka to shoot a fly. You might not hit the fly, but there's going to be a lot of collateral damage.
Fierce defenders of public records access butted heads with concerned mayors and municipal clerks over a highly controversial bill to rework New Jersey's Open Public Records Act. The fiery hearing saw a clash of priorities as critics charged the measure raises hurdles to citizen access to public information, while towns pleaded for reforms.
The bill remains deeply flawed. Many records that are currently available to the public will be cloaked in secrecy or otherwise made more difficult to obtain if the bill is enacted.
We're not trying to destroy democracy. We're trying to help protect the people who service democracy.
Critics claim sponsor Senator Paul Sarlo's rushing the measure through. It's his second attempt to fast-track the bill. The first one got yanked after a firestorm of protest. In Sarlo's view, Oprah's an out-of-date law that's turned into a gravy train for commercial data miners and greedy lawyers.
I think you'll hear today as part of the testimony, when you hear some of the rates in excess of $500, $600 an hour, it's troubling. I think you're going to hear today it's about attorney fees and about a cottage industry of folks who are making a lot of money off the taxpayers in New Jersey, and I'm not sure how we could ever resolve that. We've done our best.
The amended version requires requests include more specific information with names and dates, shifts the cost of attorney's fees so folks who sue after an agency denies their request have to pay lawyers even if they win, unless they can prove agencies acted in bad faith, and lets agencies sue people if their requests substantially impair government operations. An overflow crowd, they brought in extra chairs, heard mayors, clerks, and lobbyists urge lawmakers to vote yes.
We had to hire somebody in the township clerk's office just to process Oprah requests. She literally cried over Oprah requests. There was a developer who Oprah'd the township. It took her 12 months with extensions to fulfill this request, and her office. The developer never picked it up.
It's death by 1,000 cuts, and something has to give, and I think this legislation, with respect to how it addresses attorney fees, is a very good step, so we support the bill.
This bill does nothing but restrict access to records and place hurdles that make it harder to request them.
Progressives, media lawyers, and unions argued Oprah's crucial, noting it helped break open the Bridgegate case by uncovering the critical time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee email.
This just will be the end of Oprah as we know it. In the current state of the media, there is absolutely no money to send after people to provide to attorneys to pursue these cases. If the judges have ultimate discretion, they do not award fees.
A bill modernizing Oprah that would allow for a lot of information to be posted online would be something that we would like to see, but this bill does not do that.
The Senate Budget and Appropriations Committee cleared the bill by a vote of 10-3. Democrat Andrew Zwicker voted no, as did Republicans Declan O'Scanlan and Michael Testa.
at some point, actually, we're long overdue for some level of Oprah reform for a lot of the reasons we heard from the people backing the bill today. I just don't think this bill is there yet.
The Assembly Budget Committee will hear testimony on this bill tomorrow. If it's approved, it heads to a possible vote before the full legislature on Monday, with support from Republican leadership in the Senate. At the State House in Trenton, I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJ Spotlight News.
Well, thank you, Brenda, for that. Trevor, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, Susan.
Yeah. Well, there's some questions about the attorney fees. Did you get any more information about that in terms of what they're talking about with respect to the attorney fees? And they're saying, what's all that about from what you know, from what you gathered?
Yeah, so originally, what is currently in place is if your Oprah request is denied by a municipality, for example, like let's say it's the city you live in, like you're requesting information from the city you live in, and they deny your Oprah request. You have the ability to go to court to overturn that decision so that you can get the information you requested. Now, that would require a lawyer because you're meeting with the judge and all that. And as a result, because the whole reason everyone went to court was because the municipality denied your Oprah request, the municipality would pay your lawyer fees. But with the new Oprah law bill that's currently sitting on the governor's desk, it would be so that you, in order to, when you would go to court to attempt to overturn the decision that denied your Oprah request, when you went to court to get your public information, which is public information, meaning it should be available to the public in the first place, you would have to pay your lawyer's fee, you personally, regardless whether you win or lose. So it's not really public information if you have to pay a lawyer in order to get it, which is the whole where all that arguing is coming from. But municipalities are arguing that it's unfair to other taxpayers because you're then causing the collective of everyone who pays taxes to pay your lawyer fees. But then you have to go to the root of the issue, which is the whole reason everyone's going to court is because you're denying people's access to public records.
Now, you would say that the Oprah Act helped the whole Bridgegate case, correct? Had it not been for Oprah, maybe they wouldn't have knew all the, dirty dealings that the Bridgegate case had.
I unfortunately am not familiar with the case that you're referencing, but if it was requesting public information, yes, Oprah was involved.
Definitely. So the Open Public Records Act, they talk about a lot of it in a journalistic sense also. So I guess a lot of journalists and news people get their information from it also. So if it's
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So they really when you were in the legislative hearings, did they have any reason why they wanted to just go ahead and gut this out? What was they saying that was not right about it to begin? Why they didn't leave it alone?
So the hearing I went to the hearing of the State Assembly Committee hearing. So that's your assemblymen and your assemblywomen. Their committee hearing was that. So the hearing I was at was just testimonies from the public. I would say roughly 70% of people were there, by my estimate, and people who testified were from the press. So that's your journalists, that's your news anchors, that's your everyone in the press. It was like 70% of the people who testified while I was there. You had Marcel and I from the People's Organization for Progress. We had like, honestly, less than 10 just everyday citizens like not representing any organization or anything. They're representing themselves and their thoughts on how their legislator should vote no. And then there was about, I want to say, like 5 people that were representing. They came personally, but they worked for municipalities. So I know one that really stuck out because he was I forget his name, but he's the mayor of Millstone, New Jersey. Now, Millstone is the town next door to where I grew up. So I went to high school with his kids and all that. And he says there's no reason to have, his testimony was that there's no reason to have Oprah because anyone could just walk into his office, request a public record, and he'll just pull the record up, go to the copy machine, make a copy, and give it to them. But I'm like, okay. But there's less than 2,000 people that live in Millstone.
Did you say less than 2,000, you said, Trevor? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, less than 2,000 people live in Millstone, New Jersey. So that's a small rural township in central New Jersey. That can't really work out when you transfer that, what he's suggesting instead, that if I transferred that model to Newark, that wouldn't work at all. Think of how many people would that be just walking up to the county clerk's office, hey, I want a copy of this public record, I want a copy of this public record. You would probably get like 20 people would get their public records that day out of how many hundred in the city of Newark with that model. Like, it's insufficient. I'm like, yes. Like, I didn't speak to him personally, but I'm like, okay, that works for you in your small rural town where people aren't politically active because it's small rural township. But when you bring it up to more urban areas or more densely populated parts of the state, the model doesn't work. And he had support from his staff and all that, and so he had his staff come out. I believe he also had someone from Monmouth County come out with him, and the 3 of them testified saying, hey, you passed this bill. Oprah's unnecessary in the first place. But when everyone else from all over the state says, hey, we, the citizens, need our public records, yeah. Now, does requesting public records? Yes, that does create work for people who work for the department or municipality that you're requesting the records from, because they have to find the record, and then they have to, depending if you want an electronic copy, they have to make a PDF and email that to you, or if you want a physical copy, they have to print it and then mail it to you. But at the same time, the government is for the people, by the people, so the government should, and if it's a public record, that means the public should have easy access to it. Now, a big hot take myself and a few others have is we use the technology that already exists in every library system in the great state of New Jersey, and we just get all the information that's in all public record information, and we just put it in a library database. Because then you just would sign in as a, as a resident of the great state of New Jersey, and then you would have access to all the records. You just look it up, like in a library database. Just search up, I'm looking for police body cam footage for the first week of May in Irvington, New Jersey of 2024. And then just search, and then all the results will pop up. That's my very hot take of how we should approach public records. Because then you don't have the issue right now that that was mentioned in the news hearing of corporations just raking in information about, I see here that you own a pet. Okay, I have a list of everyone who owns a pet here. I'm going to spam them with spam mail about having pets and all that. Like, have you ever wondered how you get spam mail or that's somewhat relevant to you? That's because they got that public record information about, this is somewhat relevant to you. so they sent it to you, those ads to you. Well, that wouldn't really work out anymore because they're not a resident of the state of New Jersey, so they wouldn't have the ability to sign into that database.
That's very, very interesting. Well, I have another tape to play, and I want you to pick out anything that you think is like you might want to comment on, Trevor, that may be very necessary, maybe you might want to expound on.
Yeah, of course.
It was a blockbuster day in Trenton. While the COVID review report was being unveiled in one part of the State House, two legislative committees were meeting in another, taking up a controversial bill proposing to overhaul New Jersey's Open Public Records Act, the law that allows residents, journalists, and anyone interested to access public documents. Critics warn the fast-tracked bill will gut transparency in government in a state known for corruption, while its backers say the reforms are needed to help towns that get hit with onslaughts of requests. Senior political correspondent David Cruz reports.
It was a packed house on a busy day for the Senate Budget Committee, a Monday morning which saw the committee releasing bills on funding the Transportation Trust Fund and reforming the affordable housing program. But the hot topic was a bill from Chairman Paul Sarlo that makes big changes to OPRA, the Open Public Records Act.
So, that's a good way to start, members? We good? Okay.
The bill, which had social media buzzing all weekend, was heard in an assembly committee at the same time and drew rebukes from groups like the New Jersey Press Association, the ACLU, and others. Despite waiting 4 hours, almost everyone who testified was singing from the same hymnal.
Oh, they're going to push it right through. I mean, that's the whole plan here, right? You put this out in no time, you push it right through the committees, 2 at the same day, and then you schedule it for a few days later and try and shove it all through before anybody sees what you're doing.
The very definition of OPRA is to open up public records for the public. There is absolutely nothing in this bill that makes it easier for the public to access those records. Everything it does, it increases incentives to deny records. It shifts fees so that it's more expensive for the public and advocates to access these records. It eliminates certain kinds of records from the provision at all.
This is not just about government transparency. OPRA is about quality public education, the environment, and a whole host of other issues that we are able to look into because we have access to public records. So really what the legislature is doing here is frankly threatening all aspects of our democracy, and it's just not right.
Sarlo, who's also the mayor of Woodridge, and groups like the League of Municipalities say the current law allows for onerous requests that tie up municipal clerks with commercially focused requests.
It addresses a number of issues. I'll tell you what this bill does not do. It does not infringe on transparency. It doesn't block public records. It's simply not in the bill. And I think as the bill gets vetted more, people will come to realize that.
So, that in this room for sure is a minority view. I mean, a lot of stuff that was available before won't be available now. Certain emails, drafts, etc.
Well, it's certain elements of the log and other elements, but public records. If a journalist wants a copy of a contract, they're going to get the contract.
It's a problem. The present system has the resources of towns strained trying to respond to many of these entities that make hundreds of requests. That's a problem. And by the way, those folks, those entities, squeeze out the legitimate residential requests. So there's room here for reform. I'm just not ready to vote on this reform right now.
Your yes vote is not the most emphatic yes I've ever seen you cast.
Well, because the process has to continue. You know, through this hearing today and through a lot of correspondence, there appears to be more work to be done to reach something that everyone is reasonably satisfied with.
The bill has been on a fast track, clearing both committees today, and barring any last-minute intervention, could see a vote in both chambers on Thursday. I'm David Cruz, NJ Spotlight News.
Well, thank you so much, David, for that. Trevor, listening to that, and anybody else might want to chime in, one woman said that it threatens our democracy. How would you respond to that? You agree?
I would say Absolutely. Any access, any ability to cut off government transparency and the public and the voting base's access to knowledge and information about what the government is doing and what's going on in their community is a step towards fascism, which is fundamentally the opposite of democracy and fundamentally erodes our democracy. So I absolutely 110%, no, 150% agree with her on that statement. Yeah.
And she also talked about one guy, he was kind of sketchy, saying that a journalist can get a record if they want to. But, that's a whole different era. But I'm thinking about what the bill eliminates. They're saying that, it eliminates more access to getting those records. So to me, it seems like, when we look at the Democrats and the Republicans, it seems like the Democrats more open to the yes vote more so than the Republicans. And I found that very extremely perplexing because I'm thinking, the Democrats are supposed to be the ones who were more, who want more transparency. We're thinking that the Republicans don't want the transparency. But if anybody goes to the site, you can see how your legislators voted. And most of the legislators' audience, the grown folks talking audience, Democrats voted this in.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. I'm in my area here in Montclair, and thank goodness, my legislators is Timberlake, and I think another person, I can't think of the name, but they did vote no on this. But a lot of Democrats were on board with this with respect to this this vote. What do you say about that?
Well, that comes down to, okay, I have a very So I'm going to go way back to from what I learned from my history class in high school, which is George Washington, our first president, made what I call the Washington prophecy, which is you cannot have political parties in this country because if you have political parties, it will lead to party politics, which will be the downfall of our country. Now, allow me to elaborate on that. We currently have a two-party system, and unfortunately, everyone ignored Washington, and we've had a two-party system largely our whole existence as a country. The two-party system leads to just us versus them mentality, a tribalistic approach of we must defeat the other one, or as you said, it's people identify as a Democrat and people identify as a Republican currently, where it's like, oh, vote blue, or vote red, to the point where currently in the modern era, what this eventually devolved into right now is people will go out to vote, and they'll go, or they won't go. It actually, I believe, it leads to less voter participation because they go, let's say someone's a Republican in New Jersey, and they go, I was going to go out to vote, but I'm in New Jersey. New Jersey's a blue state, and I live in Newark, and Newark's a blue city. None of my anyone I would want to vote for is going to win. I'm just not going to bother and go out and vote. Now, that's a voter's voice not being listened to. And that's fundamentally due to the party system, where a constituent's voice isn't being heard. Now, you could flip the coin and go, oh, in Alabama, which is a red state, if someone would be a blue voter and they live in a red district, same argument. They wouldn't go out and vote. Most of the time, they wouldn't go out and vote because their candidate's not going to win anyway. So fundamentally, it's less participation in our democracy, which democracy, if everything is following the rules, is a model that becomes more efficient the more participants are and the more educated its participants are. So when you get like where we are right now, where it's fully devolved into a party system, people like the average voter only really in our country only really pays attention to the presidential election. Like they'll look up, they'll follow. Okay, I'm looking at presidential candidates. I'm looking at presidential candidates. Okay, I know who I'm going to vote for. I'm going to go to the polling station and I'm going to vote. And then I get there and I see all these other bubbles I got to fill in. It's like, who are these people? I didn't do my research. I don't know who these people are. Well, I'm a blue voter, so I'm just going to vote blue for everyone that's blue. Okay, or I'm a red voter. I'm just going to vote for everyone that's blue. But fundamentally, you're just voting for people because the party says to vote for them, not because they're the best candidate for you. You're not looking at their platforms. You're not seeing if they properly represent you. Now, why did I bring this up? Is because it's the same thing for our representatives. It's because they have to play the game. I'm doing air quotes right now, but we can't see that because we're on radio. They have to play the game, you know? They have to play for the team, which would be, in our case, the Democratic Party, where it's like, even if a legislator fundamentally disagrees with the Oprah bill right now, they see, well, it's a Democratic bill, so we have to vote for the Democratic bill because we're all a team and I need the party's funding and the party's support in order to run again to win my next election. Because it's all a game. They're not even thinking about the people. They're thinking about themselves and they're thinking about their place in our corrupt system. They're not thinking about what is best for my constituents. That's why, historically, the best elected officials are the people who did one term because they got in, they did what they said they were going to do, they properly represented their people, and they left. Why'd they not come back? Because they didn't play the game. They weren't fighting for the party and doing what the party told them to do and all that. They did what was right for the constituents. Now, I'm glad that there's representatives that deviated from that and listened to their constituents, such as Representative Timberlake, and there's a few others that I forget off the top of my head that deviated from the Democratic Party and listened, especially people that, which then it comes on us as constituents to call our representatives and say, hey, you're my representative, I'm a constituent of yours, this is how I believe this is how you would best represent me, is by voting no against this Oprah bill. Unfortunately, we're a bit too late on that for the Oprah bill right now, which means we just got to carry that over to Governor Murphy, who's our governor, and he's all of our governors right now. So he's our representative. Call your representative, Governor Murphy, or email him, or fax him, whatever makes you the most comfortable. Mail him, send mail to the governor's mansion if that's your preferred method. But let the governor know, hey, I believe public records should be available to the public. I believe in government transparency, and this bill is fundamentally opposed to that. And why is that? Because all the bill is just listing ways that it's ways to make it more difficult to get what's it called?
Exactly.
Get public records. It's not a government transparency isn't a yes no. It's a sliding glass, you know? Like, think of it like there's different layers of thick glass, or like glass has varying levels of transparency of how well you can see, or different substances as well, you know? Like the glass that you have on your windows in your house, that would be 100. Actually, no. That would be like one level of transparency. 0 layers of transparency would be opening your window and just looking right through. You're able to stick your arm through and all that.
Exactly.
But then versus like you move over a few feet and you're looking straight at your wall, that's 0% transparency. You're not able to look through your wall. You can't see what's going on outside. It's what those windows for.
Exactly. Well, I have
with this bill, we're closing our windows. We're lowering the shades. We're putting up dark shades. So yes, there's still a window there. So it's still possible to see outside. But we're putting all these layers in the way, because now you got to move those shades. You got to open the blinds. You got to open the window. And all these different extra processes to go through. And all these extra processes, the everyday person, they're going to see these things and they're going to go, you know what? Maybe I don't need this public record, whatever. And that's then you just cut off constituent from a public record, which means it's no longer public. It's not there for the people.
Well, I would hope that, but let me play this, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are. Let's listen to, like I said, all these wonderful clips that I'm playing. There's people who have sent it to me. I've been trying to get as much information, and these action committees have sent this plethora of information to me. So here we go.
In opposition of this legislation, I've served at the local level as a borough councilwoman and on various boards, zoning board, land use board, as a county freeholder and then commissioner, and 18 years as a public school employee, so I do understand Oprah quite well. I understand the expenses. Oprah is a mandate, mind you, a worthy one, but still we must consider its costs and its ramifications. I understand the need to streamline and modernize some of the processes and assist local governments with some of the commercial abusers of the current Oprah law who cause countless amounts of work hours to comply with Oprah requests to make corporations money. But this legislation does not just address that. It goes way, way beyond that. You know what I worry about in this bill? I worry about a working class parent of a vulnerable child, and the parent files an Oprah request to figure out why there were no responses from the school for a bullying situation, or why they feel their child is being mistreated, or any curriculum request by a parent, and those requests are wrongfully denied, and the parent doesn't have the money now to afford an attorney to act on the parent's behalf to get these government records. And no attorney now is going to want to take this case because of the removal of the mandatory payment of attorney fees for successful denial of appeals in this bill. But more importantly, this hits home in Sussex County. We all heard of the horrific loss at the Andover Subacute Nursing Home during the early days of the pandemic. In May of 2020, I was the deputy director of the board at the time, and our county council, on behalf of myself and the rest of the Sussex County freeholders at that time, we filed Oprah requests with the state of New Jersey regarding this tragedy. The governor at the start of the pandemic issued executive orders blocking the release of certain information due to the public health emergency, and we were denied. So Sussex County sued, and it is now, 4 years later, May of 2024, and Sussex County is still in court with the state, is still fighting tooth and nail, who continues to try to prevent to release the information during that time. And do you think this bill addresses any of that? No, not one iota. Us as freeholders, we cooperated fully with all investigations. All emails, all correspondence, we released it all. And do you know how much the public believes in Oprah in Sussex County? We made it a referendum question. We put it on the general ballot out to the public and asked the public's permission to spend Sussex County taxpayer dollars going after the New Jersey Department of Health to get access to those public records, and we won resoundingly. There was a chorus of the public saying, yes, we demand those records, and we are willing to sacrifice our taxpayer dollars, our resources, to get that information from a state that's withholding it. So I hope you understand my position that when we talk about Oprah reform, you know what would be really great? A bill that was not deeply flawed. A bill that does not allow the government to sue requesters who are simply requesting information. A bill that does not allow lawyers to charge exorbitant fees. And a bill that does not automatically deny an anonymous requester's appeal. Again, there is definitely need for Oprah reform. And I commend the sponsors of this bill for recognizing that, and I appreciate the sponsors of the bill for recognizing that. But from my neck in the woods, this is bad legislation, and I urge all my colleagues to please vote no. Thank you.
Vote no. What do you think about that? Thank you, Fantasia, for sending that to me. I really appreciate it. Trevor, I mean, did she lay it out or what?
Yeah, she really laid it out great.
Yes. That's why it's so important for us to really, really recognize the importance of this bill. When I heard this clip that she sent me, I said to myself, wow. I mean, made a referendum, that this would, not go into, they don't want this to go into effect. But thank you, Fantasia, for that. Any other questions anybody might have? You want to add any other comments to what she said, Trevor, or anybody else would like to chime in right now? Don't all speak at one time. Is Marcelo on the call yet? She's not on the call yet. Okay. Then what we will do is, like I said, anybody have any questions? The floor is open. Any questions or comments? First of all, has anybody called to the governor's office? And all you don't even have to say what the number of the bill is, because I called myself, my daughter called, my husband called, my sisters called, my cousins called. I called everybody to tell them to call the governor's office. So all you had to do was to call into the governor's office and say, veto the Oprah bill. That's all. You didn't even have to. I started saying the name of the bill, the number of the bill. She said, oh, the Oprah Act. Okay, I'll get it to him. So just flooding them, I guess she's keeping count of how many people who's called. I think she asked me, where was I, what was my town? I think that was the only thing that she asked me. But other than that, she said, okay. So, okay, I will definitely get that to the governor's desk. So that's basically all that you have to do, is just to call there and tell them that you want to veto the bill, and that's what it is. What I wanted to say to you also, Trevor, when I called in, I had some other questions for her that she couldn't answer me on. And apparently she had transferred me to the Legislative Services desk. So I asked the guy, I started asking about the bill, and the question that I asked him, I said, how long does it take for the governor to do something about the veto? How long will the bill sit there, or what's the time frame? And he told me, we went back and forth, and guess what, grown folks talking audience? He was not very knowledgeable at all. The young guy had to actually look it up, first gave me an erroneous answer, then came back to me with the answer, and it was just, but Trevor, why don't you talk about the conversation we had with respect to those parties who work in the legislative offices, that we have to probably do more research than they do. But can you expound upon that again? Yeah.
So in our the conversation Susan and I had before we began the show today was I touched, because Susan's like, I don't understand, how do you work for the government and not know all the questions about the government when you get a call from a constituent? How do you not know a simple question like that, like about how long does the governor have to sign it? And I told her, I was like, Susan, I interned at an assemblyman's office, the late Ronald Dancer, when I was in high school. I interned at his office, and let me tell you, during my time there, we maybe got calls from constituents. I was there for the fall semester of my senior year in high school, and we got calls from constituents less than 10 times. So from September to December, we got less than 10 calls from constituents. Now, granted, he represents a rural area and it's less less densely populated and he has less constituents. But even if you scale it up, that's barely any calls. Like, that's less than one call a day from a constituent. To the point where one time when we were getting ready for we had a bunch of paperwork all over the place to prep the assemblyman before he went to Trenton to vote on something. And it was one of the rare days that we got a call from the constituent. And the assemblyman's secretary, she heard the ringing of the phone, but she couldn't find it under all the paper. It took us, we eventually found the phone, and we had to call the constituent back because we couldn't get to the phone in time. Because we're just not used, people in legislative offices, especially in rural areas in New Jersey, aren't used to getting calls from constituents. So I'm like, Susan, they've probably been phone trained, but they're not up to date on their skills. They're not practicing their phone skills very often. So I completely understand. But to answer the question, I answered it for Susan. I'm going to share the same answer with everyone right here on Grown Folks Talking, is Governor Murphy has until the end of June to sign, to veto this bill. And if he does not veto this bill, he'll end up automatically passing because it's still sitting on his desk. Now, there's two ways the governor could do this. He could either directly veto it, and in that veto, he would veto it, and then he would write a brief statement about why he vetoed it and all that, and then it would go back to the Assembly and the Senate, and then they would have to revote. If they wanted to, they could revote on it in an attempt to overturn the veto, and then if that happens, it would become law. Or the governor could do what's called a pocket veto, in which case he takes. Now, imagine you're at the desk. The Oprah bill is sitting right there on his desk. He would take the bill, and then he would open the drawer in his desk, and then he would put the bill in there, or he would fold it up and put it in his suit pocket. That's called a pocket veto, where he didn't directly veto it, but he took it off his desk. So that means he's, quote unquote, still considering it. And as a result, it would give him more time to think about it before signing into law. And then at the end of the legislative session, so the end of December, does the legislative session end in January? I forget when, but December, January, whenever the legislative session ends, you have to restart all the bills from scratch. So anything that was still not signed off, it's gone. Poof. So that would be a pocket veto. Or the governor could directly veto it. Those would be the two options the governor has if he wishes to go on the side of constituents at large to veto this bill. But the governor has until the end of June to do that. So that's 45 days. So this got to his desk on May 13th. So 45 days, if I'm not mistaken, would be Thursday, June 27th. But for simplicity's sake, let's just say the last week of June. So the governor has roughly a month. There's a month to veto this bill. And so we've really got to get hard on the governor and say, Governor Murphy, we, your constituents, we believe in government transparency, and we need you to veto this bill. We need you to veto this Oprah bill. As Susan just said, you could call. You don't even have to remember the name of the bill. You could just call. You could just call the governor's office and say, "Hello, my name is so and so. I reside in your township, and you're a registered voter in New Jersey, and you want the governor to veto this Oprah bill."
That is true, Trevor, and here's the information. You call Governor Murphy. The phone number is 292-6000. That's all you have to do. The woman actually, Trevor and the Grown Folks audience, cut me off and said, "You're calling about the Oprah bill." I said, "Yes, I'm calling," because I started running, and she said, "Okay, no problem." So you don't even have to remember the bill. Like I said, we have to take action because, again, a lot of people don't know, so we have to tell them. And also the fact is that, you know, I was talking to Trevor earlier before we got on air on the line here, and actually I was talking to the Legislative Services. I said, you know what could happen? He could go ahead and not veto this bill, sign it into law, and then once everybody starts going to get public records, realize that it's a different ball game now, and they did not know about it, it can be chaos, you know, with respect to that. You know, because when you don't know, you really don't know. You know, we don't know everything at every time, and everybody's not in every place at every time. So I told him that. I said, you know, what could happen is you can go somewhere and say, wait a minute. About a year ago, because I guess the bill doesn't be signed into law. Well, I think they said in January. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let me just finish my thought. So the woman or man goes to the desk to get the open records and realize that it's a different ball game. The rules has been changed, and that can create chaos right then and there. So we're just telling everybody to please tell everybody, especially with police brutality cases, whatever case may be. We do not need less transparency. We need more. And how things are going today, we need more transparency than ever before. Because I really believe they're trying to do something just to put things underneath the rug, keep us into, you know, whatever we want to be into fashion, or whether they're not thinking about this bill, so we can just push it underneath the rug or whatever. But no, we want to let them know that we do understand what's going on here, and we're going to tell people, and people should, just like I said. I mean, Trevor, you tell me, how hard is it to call a phone number? How hard is it really, people, to call a number? You call Governor Murphy's office is 609-292-6000 and say, please veto this bill. I want this bill. And if that keeps going on, Grown Folks Talking audience, and they keep having those calls flooded their office, Governor Murphy is going to understand, oh, wait a minute, these people mean business. I can't do this. I can't do this. The people have spoken. And how do you speak? You speak by calling them. 609-292-6000. Like I said, I call, my husband called, my everybody I know call. I'm making sure that they calling, and I get them on the phone and say, hey, dial that number. Let's do it now. Let's do it again. It doesn't hurt to call again and again and again. Make up for somebody else's. Make up, whoever. Just get that call in. He needs to know that the people are speaking up. So that's very important. Is Marcella on the line right now? No, she didn't come in. Well, Marcella, she was doing some gardening in her yard, and she had to definitely make sure that maybe she's just a little bit tired. But that's okay. I can understand that. If anybody have any questions, I'm going to be like Abdul. Trevor, there's this health food guy. He comes on. He stays on for an hour, and sometimes he may do less. If no one has any questions, what I do here on Grown Folks Talking, Combating Systemic Racism Through Education, we want to make a point. We want to bring people to action. We want to make things happen. That's what it is. We really want to make things happen and definitely push you into action because it feels good. I know when I think about all the things that were going on during the civil rights audience, how they were doing the Montgomery bus boycott and they made it happen. A lot of things were going on. We can make this happen. We can really, really make a difference. And once that governor says, okay, I'm not going to sign that bill, I can say, yeah, the Grown Folks Talking Radio was really a part of that. Yes, we were, and we are on it. So like I said, I'd like to open up the audience, if anybody have any comments or questions. Again, you can call Governor Murphy at 609-292-6000, and tell him to veto that bill. Veto, it must go. Veto, it must go. The Oprah bill must go. So again, right now, I'd like to know if anybody have any other questions. I'm opening up questions or comments. So the floor is open, everyone. If anybody doesn't have the word, yes, if anybody has any questions, please, the floor is open and you can comment. Hello. Anybody have any questions on the Oprah Act? OPRA. It's called the Open Public Records Act. OPRA. Save Oprah. Call Governor Murphy at 609-292-6000 and just tell him to veto the bill. Just tell him to veto the bill. Let me ask anybody, has anybody else besides myself and Trevor that I know of, have anybody else called into the governor's office? Can anybody give me a yay or a nay? Anybody else? Has anybody else called into the governor's office? Has anybody called into the governor's office and asked the governor to veto the Open Public Records Act bill? Has anybody else called that I know of besides Trevor and myself? Yes or no? No. All right. Well, if you haven't, you have until, Trevor, just correct me. They have until when to do this?
We have until the end of June. So
the end of June to do it. So
I'll tell you what, it takes less than 3 minutes to call the governor.
3 minutes. So people can't talk about other things if they're not trying to make things happen. If you're not trying to make things happen, this is the type of people we are.
You know what? When you're in your kitchen and you put on your cup of coffee, you're waiting for that to boil, you could call the governor right then.
Right then, that's it.
It takes less than 3 minutes. By the time it's done, your coffee's ready.
Hey, I like that. That's a great suggestion, Trevor.
Add that to part of your morning routine.
Yeah.
Call the governor.
Yeah. Call the governor. Get up in the morning. I'm going to call the governor because we're definitely going to make things happen. So, like I said, anybody have any questions? If anybody don't have any questions or anything like that, I'm going to just make this an hour show because it's about action. I did this show again this week on this subject because it's extremely, extremely important. I want to bring people to action. And I want to talk about it. You heard the clips that I played this evening, telling you what this Oprah bill is about. Also, Trevor telling you what's going on in this bill and how necessary it is for us to call the governor's office at 609-292-6000 and tell him to veto it. So it's all about action. If we don't have any action, nothing can be done. We can talk the talk, but we got to walk the walk. And that's what I've learned throughout my life. Let me just tell you a little story about myself. I was on a radio station one time talking about how bad something was. And the radio, Trevor and the audience, right, he stopped me. He said, excuse me, but are you in the organization? And I said, no. And he said, well, you're a part of the problem. You're talking all this stuff and you're not doing anything. You're just huffing and puffing. And he said, don't you call my station again until you join the organization. Okay? And that's, Trevor, how I joined the People's Organization for Progress. That was over 15 years ago. I said I felt so bad. He made me feel so bad that I said to myself, and he helped me. Thank God for the brother's name was was Norman Seabrook. He was president of the Benevolent Association. It's where the Rikers Island. He was the head person. He had a show called Keeping It Real back in the 90s, actually. Yeah, 90s or 2000, Keeping It Real. And I would call into the station because they had some really good topics and stuff like that. So he asked me, he said, are you a part of the organization? I said, no. He said, well, don't call me back until you become a part of the organization because you're part of the problem. And I thought about that very deeply. You know, I was huffing and puffing and blowing no houses down because I wasn't getting things into action. So I thank Mr. Seabrook for him calling me underneath the carpet and telling me to join an organization to do something. Not that you have to join an organization, but are you doing something to help push the needle further? Are we doing something that's going to pass on to the next generation? You know, when we think about Martin Luther King, he was the cream of the crop. He could have went and got what do they call it, butter from the duck type of job. But no, he gave back to his community. He did it for his kids. He did it for all of us, that we may have a better life. So I'm asking you people to reach into your hands and dial on the phone or however you can and call Governor Murphy at 609-292-6000. Like I said, if anybody doesn't have any other questions or comments or whatever, I'm going to close the show out. But before I close the show out, I want whoever is a host on this on my line to actually tell the audience about your show and when you can be heard, so you can unmute yourselves if you're muted, and we can take it from there. Is there any hosts that we have?
I have a question before you start the host.
Sure.
I would like to ask Trevor a question. I would think the legislature, I understand calling the governor, but I think people should call the legislature and say, I don't like this. So if enough people call the legislature the truth, maybe the legislature will call the government and say, you know what, we need to veto this bill. I don't think the legislature should be off the hook. They still can be pressured to call the government, but you just got to, tell them, like, listen, my group heard about this, we don't like it, and maybe the legislature get a lot of pressure and call the government and say, you know what, we shouldn't pass this. But I always tell people, say, you heard it from a group, you were in a group, so they know that it was more than just you. So that may say, oh, well, it's a group, so maybe we shouldn't pass it. Instead of saying just the individual or just me, I don't like that. Say it's my church group or this committee I was with, so they all know, well, this is not just one person, it's their whole group. Everybody's hearing about it. What do you think about that, Trevor? Do you think that's a good strategy?
You're absolutely right.
Good afternoon. This is evening, so Deacon Kenway.
Good evening. How are you? Well, let's just hold on for a second. We'll definitely take your call. Trevor, please answer that question for Mr. Michael.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The legislator and both chambers of it, the assembly and our senators, none of them should. Those who voted yes, none of them should be let off the hook for it. You're absolutely right for that. So yes, we should reach out to them, especially because we know they get barely any calls. So calling them up and saying, "Hey, I didn't like this. I'm a voter, and I'm going to remember this come next election because." And I was with my church group. I was with my book club. I was in class. I heard this on Grown Folks Talking Radio. I heard that. Whatever it is, whatever group you want to name drop. But, yeah, don't let them off the hook, especially when you bring up, I'll remember this when I go to cast my next vote, because then they really start to think, oh, this matters, because this is now affecting them. But unfortunately, they're not the one with the bill sitting on their desk right now. So we also got to make sure to reach out to the governor as well.
Yes.
So I would say it's more pressing to reach out to the governor, which is why we're very much harping on that. But additionally, absolutely reach out, especially look up how your legislators voted. Even if they voted against it, reach out to them, say thank you so much for properly representing me and voting no against this Oprah bill. I understand it passed, but can you please pass the word along to Governor Murphy that myself as a constituent in that you represent, we want him to veto it, Because when the governor starts hearing from the legislators, he's going to feel that pressure even more because those are his coworkers. So, yeah, reach out to the governor, reach out to your legislators. Regardless if they voted yes or no, reach out to them Because if they voted no, say thank you for voting no against Oprah. Thank you so much for properly representing me as your constituent. And if they voted yes and put it forward, remind them, hey, I'm a registered voter. I'm going to remember this when I go to the ballot box come November or next November. Whenever you're up for re-election, I'll remember this, and I remember your name. You know?
Exactly. Yes, sir, there was somebody else in the queue. Go ahead and speak, sir.
Oh, yes. Good evening. My name is Deacon Eddie Little Jr. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. First-time caller. I just wanted to echo everything that the previous caller just made. This is very bad legislation for the public, and I definitely am going to be reaching out to Governor Murphy's office and ask him to veto this bill. Thank you very much for putting on this platform for the people to speak their mind, and everybody just continue to pay attention to what our legislators do, because that old saying, "What you don't know won't hurt you," is not true. What you don't know can definitely hurt you. So we have to be aware, be vigilant, and keep everyone, all of our elected officials, accountable for what they do. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you so much for that. That's so true, sir. Anybody else have any other? Has anybody ever had the well, I wouldn't say, that's not right for me to say opportunity, but did anybody ever have a need to use the Oprah bill? Anybody in the audience ever had to use that bill for something they were experiencing? We're blessed. If we know, none of us have. We are truly blessed. Trevor, did you say you had to use it for something, or was that someone else said? Maybe I think it was Marcella, right?
Me personally, I haven't, but I know plenty of people that have. I know a comrade's sister, she was having some issues with her landlord, so she had to put in an Oprah request. And it turns out, after filing that Oprah request, turns out that the landlord never got a certificate of occupancy for the apartment. And with that, she won a huge lawsuit and got settlement and all that. So, think of that. If you're having issues with your landlord, maybe Oprah request them. Oprah request the property. See if they're hiding anything from you. And that's a good thing to also think about. If you're moving somewhere else, Oprah request the property to see if it's like, oh, it turns out that there's massive water damage a few years ago. Make sure to ask them about that when you're negotiating price. There's that. It's at the college, a lot of, especially in Africana studies and political science and all that, when students are writing their thesis and they need extra information that isn't available in our school's library database or any of that, and they're doing policy
we begin today
reports,
with public school
they
funding.
have to do Oprah requests to get those policy reports and get data about what's currently going on in the community, and that's in their thesis. So I personally haven't used Oprah yet, but it's very important, and I see people around me using it all the time, and it's, we got to fight for it, because we won't go back.
No, we won't. We will never go back. Never go back. Definitely forward. Like I said, anybody else have any comments, questions to what was said here? Hello? Did I hear someone? Do I have people on mute? Hello?
Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr.
But nobody's on mute.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. Thank you so much for that, sir. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Well, I got a little special something for the audience, and then we can go into announcements. Just give me 2 seconds, and I will pull it up. I think this is very important. The Grown Folks Network, like I said, if anybody doesn't have any other questions or any comments, I'm going to play this, then I'm going to come back and we can do the announcements of the other shows, and we can wrap it up. Because we already presented what the case is, what action we must take in order for us to move forward with respect to this, the Oprah Act. And that's it. We just got to call to action for people to call the number and tell their governor that they want to veto. So I have a little surprise for everybody. I found it pretty amusing, so I want you to tune in right now.
Oh, hey, family, what's going on? Just doing a little workout. 67 and fit. As far as that, all folks talking, express yourself. Progressive Podcast Network. I'm here to tell you about an event coming up in North New Jersey on Saturday, August the 10th. It's called the Dis-Ease Prevention, Convention, and Health Forum, right here in the lovely city of North New Jersey, better known as Brick City. And once again, Grown Folks Talking, Express Yourself, Progressive Podcast Network presents the event. All right, and I'm your host, Mr. Forrest J. Nance. There will be a plethora of speakers, plenty of speakers, health, politics, nutrition, anything that's pertaining to a strong immune system and keeping us well as a human family. So, if you need, and I'm going to have in 1 minute, poster, thank you, President.
Yes.
Okay. I would like for my videographer to get a close-up on this. This is a poster for the event. 10th, 2024, from 12 to 6. It's going to be in Newark, New Jersey. And if you need to download a flyer, go to Grown, Grown, Folk, Folk, Talking, TALKIN.com, and download the flyer. And this is a family event, so bring the children. And of course, the children should be well behaved. All right. So teach the children while they're young. Have the family come out, and I'm telling you, family, you're going to enjoy yourself. All right. And guess what? This is a donation event. It's not ticketed. All right. Just come from, like my man just say down here, $1 on up. If the only thing you can spare is $1, being honest and being truthful to your heart. All right. Then put $1 in the cookie jar. All right. But prosperity goes a long way. Give what you can coming through the door. This is for the community because, as you know, our community is in dire straits. A lot of people are eating bad. So we're going to not try to tell you what to eat, just try to show you just a better way. So with that being said, my name is Forrest Nance. You need to contact me in reference to the event, 973-456-6246. All right? If I'm not in, you leave a message. I'll get back to you. And we're reserving tables for this event. And like I said, a plethora, a whole long list of speakers. It won't be boring. I guarantee you it'll be energizing and nourishing for the mind, body, and soul. Peace and blessings, family.
Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Again, let me just make some announcements. Tomorrow, we have the prayer cloth. It comes on at 7 o'clock. People, get your prayer on with Miss Carol. She comes on every day from 7 to 7:30, and then on the weekends, I think it's an additional half hour. But again, it's nothing much greater to get up and praise and prayer. That is a wonderful thing. Then tomorrow night, I know there's maybe Mr. Nance can help me. On Saturday, there are some programs, but I know his program comes on from 6 to 8 p.m. It's called Grown Folks Talking, none other than Mr. Forrest Nance hosting the show. Again, there's always the number you can dial in. So if I'm not giving you all the information that you need, As my mother always said, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and by doing that, you can dial 520-525-8633 and get an itinerary of all the wonderful shows that the Grown Folks Talking Network has on its station. Awesome, awesome shows. Some of the greatest health shows, I've ever heard. Since I've been listening to the shows, I have seen improvements in my skin. I have to say so because I am elated. So things are, the information that you get here, oh my goodness, it is unbelievable. So again, tomorrow morning is the prayer cloth with Miss Carol. Like I said, it starts at 7 o'clock. In the morning, you can get your praise on. Oh, you can get your praise on and your prayer going. And again, like I said, if I'm not mentioning all the shows, you can call in for an itinerary at 520-525-5633.
Mic check.
Mic check. Go ahead.
All right, Sister Susan. Yes. You started off with the praise call, which is on 7 days a week. And tomorrow, Sister Susan, we will have a young lady by the name of Your Highness. She's 22 years of age. She'll be starting at 12 noon tomorrow. In fact, you might want your daughter to tune into that one. They're around the same age range. And she's to the listeners, please tune in and let's support her. This will be our very first show. Then we have Sister Deborah at 2 o'clock. Then we got Brother Eric B., Dr. Eric B. at 4. Then yours truly to end the evening. So I just wanted to say that, Sister. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. First of all, I'd just like to thank my guest, Mr. Trevor Conroy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I thank the guests for coming out tonight to be sitting here with us on a Friday and getting some information that's going to definitely empower you. All I ask, again, is that you be empowered, that you learn, that you take something away from the program and put it into action. Again, the number that you're going to call is 609-292-6000 and ask them to veto the bill. And of course, we always wish everyone, each and every one, peace and blessings. And my favorite song is The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. Good evening, everybody. Good night, and power to the people. Peace and blessings.
Stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading the charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nub. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on report from 39 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still life of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green Liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbilly, and Hooterville Church.